Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. The next one comes from Don DeVore. Actually, this is a very similar question to something else that Don has written about, because the pro tip is use both. But this was in response to, does the Fantom have real-time recording KORG Nautilus not address cross-compatibility? And Don writes, the Fantom pattern-based sequencer is essentially emulating Ableton Live's session mode. The song is used to assemble an arrangement by choosing patterns in various combinations, but it's not as intuitive as the DAW. At first I was disappointed with the lack of traditional linear sequencing, but with a DAW it's easy to set up and record thousands of measures of MIDI data. Kronos can record 16 tracks of audio along with built-in sequencer tracks. Fantom can't. Kronos has higher quality weighted keyboard. Fantom is better looking. Pro tip, use both. Well, you know, the bottom line is use as many tools in your arsenal as you can to get the job done is the way I look at it. So great advice and very true. There are many trying to justify one platform over another, and to a degree I do include me in that statement. But the reality is you should use the tool that meets your requirement best. If you've got a Jupiter synthesizer and you want a Jupiter sound, why would you use a Fantom? Why not use the Jupiter for the Jupiter sound? If you've got a DX7 for a DX7 sound, I'm sitting there looking at my new DX7 that is there. Use the DX7. Don't use an emulator. Don't use a VST. Use the keyboard. But that's because I like playing the hardware. I'm a tactile musician. Bad musician, but I'm still a tactile musician. I like playing around with the keyboard itself rather than all mucking around with VSTs. Now, people will argue with me. I can think of a couple of people who will probably jump on me straight away about what I've just said. You know, VSTs are the best thing since, you know, Hovis man brought the bread up the hill. No, they're not. They are a tool to do a job. Use the tool that gets the job done. Next comment or question comes from Shane Blythe, and this one's in response to the Death of the Kronos video I did in December 2021. And Shane writes, mine died too often and I sold it a few years ago. It takes way too long to boot on stage, so it became beat to me. Dead to me? Deep to me? Beat to me is what's written. With a laughing emoji. By the way, if anyone thinks I might like the Fantom or Fantom O, look up Note Stealing on YouTube and stay away. It's really bad, which is a shame, as the O does some really nice stuff. But take it from me, I warned you. Such an interesting comment, that one. Anyway, you know, it's interesting feedback, because, you know, with the sort of the synthesizer space is I think hotting up. I think it's going to hot up again. With Yamaha kind of making the announcement that the montage is dead, and everyone's shouting, "No, it's not. That's not what the dealers are saying." But it's what Yamaha are saying in the music press. So either the dealers don't understand it or Yamaha don't understand it. I'm not quite sure which way around that is. But I would say for many KORG Kronos users and KORG Nautilus users, the boot up time has always been an issue. Even though these keyboards actually have an SSD in them. So it's not the data transfer time from the disk that's taking the time to load. It's something in the operating system. It has to go through I suppose, a series of steps, and each one of those steps takes a finite amount of time to load the various stuff in. It doesn't help on the Kronos, of course, that what we just start doing is all loading in loads of user libraries at the same time. That extends the load time, of course. Anyway, but one of the things I always recommend for these brownout boot up issues on stage, unless the synth really just goes bing, I always recommend having some sort of power conditioning on the stage. If you can, actually have an APC on the stage. Put an APC in your 19-inch rack or whatever it is, and just wheel it onto the stage and plug everything into your APC. And that will stop things like said idiot unplugging the keyboard by accident, someone tripping over the wire, someone tripping over the wiring at the back of the keyboard, because it all becomes far more compact. A power conditioner is kind of a must nowadays, even though the electrics in venues has got better because they all have to certify themselves. I still would have an APC in the bottom of my rack servicing all my keyboards. I just don't trust venue electrics. I've seen so many things go bang because of venue electrics in the past. I just don't trust venue electrics. It's simple as that. Even in my little Goldfish Bowl studio, and when the main studio will be back up and running, I have 3 APCs that run the equipment because I just don't trust the electrics. And just as a complete side here, the housemates were here over, I've been away for a couple of weeks and on business, and I got a phone call on Thursday morning from the housemates saying, there's no power. What do we do? And overnight, the power tripped out. Now, what we don't know is whether there was anything in the house that's tripped the power out, or whether it was actually something outside. Now, I don't think it's anything in the house, because they assure me that pretty much everything was turned off before they went to bed. So I don't think it's anything in the house, but that's an external power issue coming in, tripping the electrics. So if you can trip the electrics in your house, it can definitely do some damage to your keyboards if they're plugged in. Anyway, so enough on power. I keep, when this stuff comes up, I always have a doodah on power, because it is a pet peeve. But in terms of the Roland Fantom, this is another really interesting headline. Roland Fantom, Fantom O, 256 voices, and each stereo takes 2 partials, which is really interesting, because that second part of the answer doesn't look like the first part of the answer, but I'm going to read it anyway. So on the Roland Fantom, each stereo takes partial takes 2 voices, then a single tone is reduces the polyphony to 128. That's two partials per tone, takes it down to 64, and so on. Therefore, the more layers you put on, the less polyphony you get. I'm guessing that is what you're referring to in terms of the issues with the Fantom and losing polyphony. He says, it just doesn't sound right, but I'm going to leave it in anyway, because I've sat and recorded this one. I'm not going to go back and record it again. So there you go. There's an answer to a question that wasn't answered.